participatory and ground-up knowledge production could work in practice through the digital archive and curatorial programming. The project thus treats decolonization not as purely a matter of negotiating the return of artifacts, but as an active process of building a structure for forming new networks that go beyond and deconstruct passed-on hierarchies. It opens up the format of the archive to new ways of learning and knowledge-making, new types of education that function through collaboratively making connections and embrace the possibilities of new technologies. This proposal references to Captain Mahuga's and Achille Mbembe's call to African people to create an educational system that is cross-cultural, multidisciplinary, and problem-solving, promoting ground-up knowledge production and fostering critical thinker-doers. A new archive in Tangier provides a major chance to recontextualize and make accessible objects and artifacts that have never before been collected in a comprehensive archive and, to a large extent, are physically inaccessible to people in Morocco. In course of the last centuries, most artifacts that bear testimony of Morocco's and specifically Tangier's rich and varied culture got scattered through looting over the world. By collecting not physical objects, but digital representations of those objects, an archive can be created that gathers many of those objects that aren't physically available because they got removed from their place of origin. It should be mentioned that this digital archive for Tangier is not supposed to diminish the great importance of provenance research. On the contrary, through this approach, new object statuses could be found and legitimated. In this way, a comprehensive and vast archive could emerge that, for the first time, brings this unique selection of elements together. In doing so, new ways of reading the history of Northern Africa can be generated. A history so complex that it cannot be told in one story, but only in many. Museums and archives all over the world are starting to digitize their inventories for good reason. Digital representations of arts and crafts, sculptures, literature, or music, and even architecture and performing arts can be preserved through modern technology and then made accessible for a wider public. This can be done through photographs, sound recording, and videos, but also through fascinating new methods like 3D scanning or virtual or augmented reality devices that enable new ways of accessing and experiencing digitally archived objects. To draw from this potential, the archive in Tangier needs to be provided with contemporary technology so that a virtual collection can be accumulated and grow over time. Today, technologies afford the creation of new connections and relations between the archived items. Networks are created, linking its entities in a way so that a multiplicity of possible lines of reading are created. But what does this mean? Historically, linear and hierarchical structures dominated ways of organizing knowledge. These manifested themselves as archives, libraries, frequently represented by the visual metaphor of the tree. And now I mentioned only one image. This is on the bottom right. This is a sketch, the first sketch, I think, from Charles Darwin of an evolutionary tree, I think from 1830, whatever. For those institutions, this tree knowledge gained widespread implementation in the second half of the 19th century. The specific mode of thinking and knowing was shaped by the social and technological conditions of the time. The framework for the performativity of this data processing system was formed by the complex and intervened functioning of its individual components. A few examples. The technology of the letterpress limited to the reproduction of knowledge and information on the bottom right. The postal sector defined the speed of the data transmission upper left. The book as a medium constrained the file size upper right. And the academic disciplines predefined knowledge production in separated and specialized compartments of research. Today, this framework evidently has changed dramatically. Machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, or quantum computing, we heard yesterday about it, process huge amounts of data in seconds. Hyperlinked data structures allow for non-linear and horizontal organization of knowledge. This is really something completely different. These are just some examples of new digital technologies that drastically increase the performance of large information systems in general and promise a new evolutionary step in how knowledge is organized and collected. Against hierarchical and reductionist conceptions of knowledge, a new approach emerges, unfolds, that tries to embrace complexity and the simultaneity of multiple perspectives. The types of technological describes allow us to build an archive that takes interconnectedness, multiplicity, and fluidity as its central design principle. The establishment of new connections between formerly separated cultural artifacts leads to new contextualizations, new ways of reading the past, which reveal multiple possible interpretations instead of hegemonic clarity. It is meant as an interface for a collaborative editorial practice, asking which new connections and contextualizations should be made, which knowledges should be kept, and which narratives should be established, if any at all, and lastly, how this should be experienced and communicated. The archive in Tangier doesn't restrict itself to just one single narration, but facilitates a multiplicity of stories, each unique regarding its point of view. The digital allows for such a practice without the limitations of storage capacity or linearity of physical media, taking the limits of the medium out of the equation as much as possible. In short, the digital allows us to build an archival infrastructure that is an actual reflection of the theoretical approaches outlined earlier. Complementary to the digital archive, exhibitions, performances, workshops, and other physical formats could function as physical manifestations of selected research projects. By showing a multiplicity of perspectives instead of just a single point of view, the programming acknowledges the multiculturally entangled history of Tangier. Different ways of relating to the present and past are to be detected and discussed. Out of this local questioning, new scopes for interpretation can be found that have relevance for international and global discourses. So I'll come back to the program overview, but we have to watch the time, right? How we are. Do we have enough time to continue a little bit? Yeah? Yeah. You stop me, okay? Okay, let's have a quick overview of the Transcontinental Arts and Culture Center. We have worked out a concept together, which we would like to present you and talk about you in the next days. Redesigned and reopened as a Transcontinental Art and Culture Center, the Gran Teatro Cervantes would become a hub of international and transcontinental cultural exchange. It could become a platform for artists' initiatives. It could interact with international universities and communicate cultural and sociological topics between the continents of Africa and Europe. It could become a residence of artists and intellectuals and an urban space of discourse, and it could promote Tangier as a cultural location and intellectual center by including the performing and fine arts, cinema, literature, music, and academics. Regarding the restoration of the Gran Teatro Cervantes, Khalid mentioned it, that I do this sometimes, and a redesign of its premises, it is important to ensure that the requirements for a later use are included in the architectural design process at an early stage of planning. I have many times been involved in such planning in the past, and it has always proved very productive when the discourse about a later use is conducted at a very, very early stage. This includes, for example, the versatility of the auditorium with mobile seating, which allow for different types of events, such as exhibitions, conferences, concerts, and festivals. It will also allow for scaling the events. This concerns the inclusion of technical facilities and digital hardware in the planning, or the creation of an open-air cafe on the terrace and a number of other positions. To complement the old theater building with a new multifunctional building that could host administrative offices, conference rooms, rehearsal spaces, and a guest house that would turn the Gran Teatro Cervantes into a bustling center of urban life all year around, and that would meet the requirements of a modern cultural site. After its opening, the Gran Teatro Cervantes became a source of inspiration and place of reflection and research through a monthly program of exhibitions, gallery weekends, art installations, and conferences, regular West festivals, concerts, theater and performances, fairs. The Art and Culture Center should initiate performative work, for example, with the Fine Art Institution, the Beaux-Arts et Tétouan exhibitions, for example, like the School of Architecture, Engineering, and maybe Rabab has to help me, the Butsabe, something, school in Tétouan, and many, many more. In this context, international and interdisciplinary collaborations will be essential. Potential partners include, for example, the Training for Future in Sweden, the American Language Center in Casablanca, or also Daniel Barenboim's Western Divan Orchestra, which consists of musicians, Jewish as well as Arabian musicians. An African music festival meant to serve a stage for African stars and young talents is supposed to be realized soon, as well as an Arabian music festival, an international jazz festival, an Arabian and African literature festival, and a festival of the Berber culture, which will exemplify the Gran Teatro Cervantes' self-chosen task of presenting and preserving regional cultures. The festival should always go hand in hand with workshops, discussions, cultural mediation, programs, galas, and other festivities, which are to be coordinated with initiatives for sustainable tourism in Tangier. And here, I introduce Rabab, and I'm looking really forward to Rabab's workshop. She knows the cultural landscape in Morocco and beyond in an impressive way, and she's here. And maybe you would like to add one or two sentences, I don't know. Oh, you could come here if you want.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. Very glad to be here with our professors, researchers, and friends. So we have been working or talking about Gran Teatro Cervantes for more than 8 months. We want to turn on light in these monuments or in this lighthouse again. And we were working on some opportunities that we can promote in this historical building and how we can change it to a cultural enrichment project. So we have been talking about some collaborations, festivals, okay. Should I talk about this?
No, I think we talk about later. Okay. I think we should invite the people to the workshop. Yeah,
yes, of course. If you want to join us to the other room, I think Rabat room or Casablanca, Rabat room, we will have some workshops about our project. So we will be happy to join us. Thank you.
So let's watch out, Khalid. Should we continue for 5 minutes or should we stop? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, this is Rabah, sorry. And we have here another, in addition to the theaters, performances and festivals, exhibition and art installations that put an emphasis on Arabian and African culture and deal with Tanjé's history, present-day themes and contemporary art should be realized at the Gran Teatro Cervantes. In this context, also, the redesigned Gran Teatro Cervantes should itself should be placed in the limelight, for example, through regular guided tours. Moreover, its artistic program, the Transcontinental Art and Culture Center, is also supposed to become a venue for conferences and congresses, hosting debates on topics of great public interest from the fields of science, culture, and economics and politics. These conferences and congresses should be curated by the Gran Teatro Cervantes and conducted with the participation of intellectuals of various disciplines. There is such a rich culture of Arab and African artists and activists. The Nest Collective, a multidisciplinary collective living and working in Norway, Kenya, comes to my mind. Of course, Feline Sarr and Wa Tiong with the decolonization in the mind. Of course, Achille member and many, many more. The inclusion of such diverse formats in the program of the Art and Culture Center could, on the one hand, contribute to a lively culture and dialogue in Tangier, and on the other hand, establish the city as a location for international debate and dialogue. A residency program in addition to the art and culture program, a residency program is envisaged for the Gran Teatro Cervantes, inspired among others, other programs I don't want to tell them now. The residency program is supposed to support outstanding talents for the fields of art, literature, and science by providing them with accommodation in Tangier, inviting them to partake in the art and culture centers. Moreover, it will bring them in contact with artists and intellectuals from other cultures, in particular those of the host country, Morocco. The aim of the residence program will be to facilitate an open transcontinental exchange of ideas to encourage bold collaborations. The Gran Teatro Cervantes as a venue for public and private occasions. In our concept, the historic theater, Marvin also mentioned it, and a newly constructed multifunctional building act together to allow, for example, for conferences, celebration, galas, making full use of these possibilities and due to the special location and beauty. The Gran Teatro Cervantes could be promoted and sought after as a venue for various public and private events. Here I'm looking forward for the workshop of Kaula and Hamza, which they are also here. And maybe you would say a quick hello. What do you think?
Hello, thank you for joining us here today. Like, we are a group of young people from Tangier, and we had a plan. We have a plan. Me and Khawla and Abdul Majid and Rabab and Professor Alberts for the building of Cervantes. Like, we want to revive this building and make it for the coming generations and for us. We grew up hearing about this great place, and most of us have never get the chance to get in. We want to make it a place for everyone and a meeting points for people from all over the world. Thank you. And we would like you to join us in the workshops.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today. And I would really like from you to follow us to the workshops, you know, to talk about the parts that we're going to be talking about today with Rabab and Professor Abdul Majid. And for us, me and Hamza tomorrow, and please come in numbers. We want to hear your opinions. We want to hear from you, and we want to see what you envision for the future of the Gran Teatro Cervantes. And we would like to give you our point of view. Thank you.
And maybe immediately we jump to Abdel Majid. And I would like to announce his workshop. You have seen him on stage in last days, but we're working very close together for a long time now. And he will address you with the topic of the potentials of the Gran Teatro Cervantes for promoting cultural and artistic initiatives. And I look very much forward for the talks with you. Yeah, you would like to say one?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, we are very happy to be again here in our annual festival. And thank you very much, Albert, for everything and for your contribution. Well, in my part, I would be speaking about the potentials of the Gran Teatro Cervantes in promoting cultural and artistic initiatives in the city. Maybe it would be a good opportunity for all of us to join the workshop all together, and then we can discuss this, particularly that we have many young people from the city, and all of us, we are the future of the city, and we really want to pass this to the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I hope we have inspired your curiosity with the short summaries of the workshops. I thank my wonderful colleagues for their contributions and look really forward for the workshops with them and you together. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to the exchange in the workshops in the next 2 days. Thank you.